do that. We'll do
Right.
the whole pre-show thingy, right? And I will post the video on PWS, so it's out now.
Okay.
So, but we're already
Okay. Perfect.
broadcasting. So let's see what will happen, right? So because I'm on the chat already, but I don't see anything because I only have one monitor at the moment.
Uh,
But oh yeah,
so I go to YouTube. Hold on. All right. So I'm doing. Oh wait, I don't want to do that. Oh yes, I do. What are you doing?
Don't
Is that you really?
whistle tunes that are well known, or YouTube will sue me. We have, and I really mean that. Their videos have been taken. There were videos that were taken off because of stuff like that.
Hold on. Hold on.
Article. I only say Article 13. This is not allowed, but and I'm not joking.
are you
You're
making a
not
mess,
what?
Pete?
Pun. I don't make anything. I just say with Article 13 is the end of the internet as we know it. And just whistling, and this is something, this is true. Just whistling a song can lead to YouTube killing the video off.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm sorry.
Not not
Really?
not yet, but as soon as I mean, Article 13 has been decided on, right? This is, is a thing that will happen. And since and Article 13 means one thing. It means that the hoster, so like hosters like YouTube, Tumblr, whatever, are now responsible for copyright claims. So it's not they and so they will definitely start holding stuff back that can eventually or can get them into legal trouble. So if you do something, or if we do something, or if I upload something to YouTube that is proper. So far, there were two ways, right? There was a copyright claim, meaning that if that a company or an individual who holds the copyright to a certain image or music, most music, that they can make a copyright claim to that video and say, okay, my copyright, and so they will earn money by that, or they can make a copyright strike, which will lead to the video being removed.
Wow. Yeah. 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 It's getting tough.
With Article 13, it's a thing that now they can sue YouTube for something, and YouTube will of course say, okay, we don't want to get sued, and so they will filter videos and not post them, and immediately kill them off as soon as there's something in the videos that might get them sued. So that's Article 13. So end of memes, end of cover songs on the web, definitely.
Okay, I won't sing.
Thank you.
Yeah. No. It's the whole thing with the music has gotten really tough because I was actually looking that up. Oh my God, we're on air now.
We're on air, yeah.
Hold on. So let me just in con, oh, con online now live.
We are live.
Okay, and share.
All right, it's
All right.
3 minutes after 8 p.m. here, so 20 p.m. in Central Europe. So let's start. I hope this will work. Yes, it will. It does. Oops. I didn't want to. So I wanted to let it fade out. See. Darn, didn't work. Hello and
Hello.
hello, and welcome to In Conversation 25, April the 20th of 2019. Um, yeah, the 25th In Conversation today with a surprise returning guest. I didn't know who it was or is until Carol joined our video. So, hello, Carol.
Hi, Pete. Thanks for inviting me again.
Thank you for joining us again. Reality beauty capturer on Tumblr. And what's your Instagram?
Carol Ray Photography.
Carol, right?
Carol_Ray Photography.
So, and then we have, of course, Fernando, QBN-scholar on tumblr.com, and of course also the admin of luxlit.net. And you also have an Instagram, Fern.
Actually, it's Fernando_Socorro_dot_com because they won't let you put dots or dashes in your account name. So it's my website, but yes, I do. And it's actually interesting. I still would prefer Tumblr big time. But anyway, we'll talk about that later maybe. And you are?
My name's Pete. I like pictures. As some of you might know. And my blog is tvwom.tumblr.com. That is tvwom.tumblr.com and tvwom365. So tvwom365.tumblr.com. And
And
my Instagram is underscore
oh, you have an
underscore dash.
Instagram?
No, I don't. But I just wanted to make a joke. So I know I don't have an Instagram, so I'm sorry to disappoint. And I'm also one of the admins of Photos Worth Seeing on tumblr.com. And I want to say hello to the chat. Lots of people already on the chat. Heiko on the chat. Amy Montico on the chat. Sharon Boswell on the chat. And I bet there will be a couple more. So the live chat. So everyone who watches this video live can join us live on YouTube on the live chat. The only thing you need is a YouTube account or a Google account so that you can be on the chat and chat with us, ask questions, send comments, and I will do my best to include your comments on this episode. And this episode is about, and I didn't know anything about, so I will probably not be talking too much today because in this episode we will be talking about navigating the journey to selling our photography. And I never sold any photo of mine. Well, I did actually, but don't think that I have a lot to say about this subject. So
I'm
um,
also sure you've done
I
things you were
will, I
ashamed
will
of, like
lean,
that calendar.
I will lean back. And
Yeah, show the calendar, Pete. Show the calendar.
the thing
No,
is,
because he could get in trouble in YouTube.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I don't think that I could get in trouble on YouTube, but I could get in trouble on Tumblr because that's the funny thing about that calendar that I brought. But I can show it. I will make so no spoilers, please. I will definitely make a video about this calendar and just troll the Tumblr staff. I say it like it is because I can show that stuff on YouTube, but I can't show that stuff on Tumblr, which is really cool. So there's it's about,
Oh,
yeah, I can.
okay.
So and if you can even show stuff on YouTube, that means something. So okay, enough trolling for now. I will
Nope.
lean back, have a glass of wine while and I will this time I think I will let our two beautiful participants in this
Ouais.
talk. So,
He has two
Of course,
special guests he
Fern,
didn't tell us
gorgeous.
about.
so yeah, navigating the journey to selling our photography. Your topic, Fern. Talk.
No, what I wanted to say before we got into that is, and I don't know if you saw the post, but on Tumblr, but the documentary about Robert Mapplethorpe, the HBO documentary that came out recently, is still, as far as I know, a couple of days ago on YouTube, and it's the full documentary with no censorship. His photography, um, all of the nudity, with everything, the sex, everything. So it's interesting, and there's no warning, there's no anything, because I think YouTube had for a while, or do they still have an adult section where you can log in, and if you're 18, blah blah blah. Nothing. It's on YouTube. I mean, it's a great documentary, by the way, not because of all of that, but it is a brilliant look at his career. But anyway, so Carol, you posted recently, and actually when did you start your website? Because you started your website, what, like 2 months ago?
I think a little bit longer, but it took some time to understand how it works and how I want to do the things. But now it's um, yeah, online,
Yes.
and I post something because I don't have a blog anymore, but I really needed to write about something, so I put it there. And after, I don't know, a month, something like that, a few weeks, I put it out because the site is supposed to be like a online portfolio, to show my work. And I was not sure that that text with all my question about the art world and everything was exactly the best place to put this and to show all my struggles and my doubts. And I know there are a lot of people who say, "Oh, show yourself," and blah blah blah, but I don't know. So the text is not online anymore.
Right, and it's interesting because I think so you're taking a course on how to sell your art, and I'm
Yes.
taking a course on how to sell your art. My course, which I've talked about before, yeah, really, is The Art of Selling Art by Jason Matias, and it's really excellent, I have to say. I mean, he's giving us spreadsheets. He has live calls where he answers questions. It shares his experiences with selling art, but it's a different kind of art, at least for me, and I think you're like me. He actually does art shows. He does home shows, and he sells his stuff um, by showing you the picture of what it would look like in your home and giving you different frame options and all this kinds of stuff. And it's also larger photography. I mean, we're talking like 60-inch, 60 by 40 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, so they're statement pieces in that sense, and but gorgeous photography, I have to say. And so, how is your experience going with the online selling, and what are the decisions that you're making, or selling in general? Because it's not just online, I
Well, the,
assume.
the course is pretty slow because we receive like a question that we have to ask ourselves every week, and we have to answer that question. And if we want, we can put it, we can write it in a closed Facebook group, and the coach will give you feedback. But I'm a bit, I don't know how do you say that, but I. I don't keep up with this, and first it was okay. What is your product, and then what is your story, and what's your client? But like what does he like to eat, and what does he like to, things like that. And I think, oh. But okay, I saw that the last chapter was about marketing, but it's a
Ah,
bit slow. It's a bit, I don't know.
okay.
But
So
I
there.
bought this book some times ago,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm reading it. It's selling art online. It's been made by Creative Hub, and it has a lot of really useful tips. And then you can read it in one time. You don't have to wait 6 months to receive every chapter, you know. But the course is nice, but I don't know. It's the thing is I like so much to photograph, you know, and to be behind my computer and write emails and looking for opportunity, and with all my anxiety and fears, you know, then and then poof, I go in my atelier and then I make photo and I forget everything. So
That's interesting because when we had uh, what is it, the oh God help me, when we had Daniel and I 2 minutes, um, remember Pete, 2 minute, not 2 minute warning, two finger photography, yes, Bill.
Oh, two fingers. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually that was the reason we had both of those. We had Daniel and Bill, because Bill, like you, Carol, he wrote a piece about his questions about being an artist, and the thing he commented on was the amount of time that we that you start spending when you start becoming professional not doing photography, which is something that I have to admit I wondered about. Uh, and for me, and I've talked about this before. There's the book called, and maybe I should just write a little something about this. There's a book called How to Write a Lot, which influenced how I also view photography. And I read this for my dissertation. Not for my dissertation, but to get an idea about the process of writing, and it was highly recommended. It's a really small book, kind of like your Art of Selling Online. And the premise of the book, just to sum it up, is that writing is not just, I mean, this is academic writing, so it's writing articles or a dissertation. Writing is not just about the writing, it's about the research. It's about organizing your workstation. It's about the time you take off to just think about stuff. It's about doing the grants and everything else that we don't think of as
yes,
part of that process. And to me, that clicked. So that, and well, that, and it's funny because we were talking about the 100-year art show,
yes,
and to me it's this, you know, it's watching stuff like that, it's the learning too, and seeing so many documentaries about photographers. The one that sticks out is Annie Leibovitz, you know, and also can't remember the guy's name, but he's a top fashion photographer, and watching him on the plane and watching him go here and go there and do this and do that. And he's a photographer, but he also does all of this. And
yes,
so to me, the way I've been thinking about it for a couple of years now is I do photography when I'm doing Tumblr and I'm doing LuxLit and I'm doing all of the photos and looking through and choosing when I'm watching documentaries and all that stuff. So it as I've said before, it calms my anxiety down because I'm doing photography. But I get it. It's still sometimes, because I'm going through that now. I'm in the same. I think my website went live about the same time as yours. I finally learned what's going on, and I finally learned what I'm doing. But it's still in the process of being built,
yes,
and writing that's the story for each picture, which I do want to do, of what, you know, it takes time. And
yeah,
yes, I'm a good writer and I can edit stuff, and I'm but it's even the editing and the writing, but I'm doing photography, you
yeah,
know,
Can we,
it's tough.
before we proceed, first of all, hello to Cedric Loive. I'm sorry if I probably pronounced the name wrong on the chat. Hello to Linden Arden's Highlights Roy. Hello on the chat. And there were a couple of very interesting comments. Cedric writes, "That's what blogs are for, in my humble opinion, posting doubts, etc." So yeah, certainly.
Yeah, definitely.
One way to run a blog. And he also writes, a friend of mine gave a conference about this, and I think it was about close enough. Löwe. Well, I'm German, so Löwe. I will try.
Of Leeuwen.
That's easy for me if it's really pronounced Löwe. I think he said like 1% of the time spending on the actual image making editing excluded. So yeah,
Yeah.
being a professional in any sort of field of art certainly is most of the time doing everything else but
Yes.
actual art.
I heard that also many times by professionals that say, wow, a little bit more than 1%, but it was like, yeah, 5% of the time I shoot, and the rest is behind the computer. It's marketing, it's looking for opportunities, making contact, networking, and working hard on finding a place to hang the photos or to be published. So, yeah.
So I have a question for you, because one of the things I will say, the course that I'm taking um, is set up differently. I do like that question idea, and I do like it. I'll tell you why too. Because, and I also have a question about your essay that you took off your site. Um, the course that I'm in has modules that are already set up, and you go in, and he's creating new ones, but you go in and you take your time to study all the stuff that he's posted for each topic. And the your voice one is the one that I think, and he does recommend it pretty much one of the first things, um, is what's crucial. But are you finding that as part of this process that you're going through, how are you seeing your voice? How are you seeing your photography? Has it changed? And we've had this discussion, and we were just having it before we went on air. How has the way you see your photography changed? And how do you see yourself as far as the pricing, and how you're going to quite literally frame your photography? Several questions in there.
Well, yeah, it has changed, but I also followed a course recently with Satine Panigay. She's a Dutch photographer. I really like her work, and she gave a course for a little group, and it was What is your story? And at the end, we had to think about what is your dream with photography if everything was possible. And with this and the portfolio reviews and a lot of things, I came to the realization that I don't want to be in a gallery because it's not the place where I feel at home, or then in a very small one, in something. So it's interesting indeed to think about what is your client and your ideal client, or who would you like to buy your stuff and things like that. Because what I really would like for my work is to inspire other people, to give a good feeling, but also to create a universe. Um, and I had a few times little exhibition, and every time I was asked to put the price very high. But I'm a nobody. I mean, no one knows me on my photo. No, but seriously, I did not go to the photo academy or things like that. I'm a self-taught photographer. So for that world, I'm a nobody. It's okay. I know that. It's fine. But then I cannot ask 1,000 euros for a photo. I don't hear you, Fern.
The
No,
first,
you know what? Stop it, Pete.
no, you
You
mute.
didn't.
I see when you mute yourself.
I
It's
know, I
on
know.
screen.
But I
No, but
always wash my hands.
it,
Uh,
yes,
you answered
go
my
shoot.
question though about the because I asked you when you said what thousand, €1,000. So that was my question. How much are they asking you to charge?
Yeah, between what was it? The last time the guy said I don't, because it was a group exhibition, and he said you don't come with your photos in my gallery if it's for less than 850. And I thought, well, but I want to sell, and I don't think they are worth this. Of for me, what is important is that if someone sees my photo and is moved, then that he can buy it. You know. But anyway, I did not sell anything because I think it was just too expensive. So it's also a struggle that I have. Because there are a lot of people say, yeah, but that price is not only the photo, it's all the years you practice to come to that photo. Okay, it's fine, and I had to print it and frame it and everything. But so that's why I'm really thinking now about how to sell my photo. How the book is almost done, or at least I found it's going to be print over a month, something like that. And this is a format that I like, in a book. So it's still an ongoing question.
Well,
And
that's
you?
what he said, and there's one of a few things that I probably can say anything about in this conversation, and what you said about pricing the work. And it's nothing to do with photography. When I was in film school, there was this guy who I don't know how he found me, approached me, musicians, said I made a song and I need someone, and we already recorded a video for that song, and I need someone to edit that video, right, for me, for us, for the band. And would you want? Would you do that? And I said, of course. I think it was the first. Would have that was my first or second music video that I did. And he said, well, how much do you charge? And I just wanted to do that. And so I said, no, it's okay. Just let me do that. I want to do that. And he said, no. I said, what? No. No, you need to charge something. And I said, no, it's okay. I know you didn't have too much. Your budget wasn't high. And he said, okay, listen to me. And it's probably one of the best lessons in my life if it comes to professionalism. He said, I'm not paying you, or no. He said, we're artists. He's a musician. I was that during that time video guy, right? Said we're artists. We don't get paid, or we usually only get paid for the work we do, and not even good. But we never get paid for for the path we went to be able to do that work. And so you need to get paid. Never work without being paid.
No, but I agree. But then it's how much. But here in that book, there is a nice, it's interesting table. It's how to price your work if you sell online, because of course the gallery they take 40%, sometimes 50%. So I understand they also want to make money. But if you sell it online, and here they explain pretty well, if you starting out, rising star, established, and it's quite. At least in my eyes, for me, it seems more reasonable.
See, and that's interesting because I in the course, like I said, and most everybody in the course that I'm in, some of them are already established, and again, they spend like $4,000-5,000 to go to these home shows to have a booth. Actually, Jason was just in Art Basel in Miami. And he's also a hustler. I have to say, he's actually eventually made contact and had conversations with the two curators for Microsoft in Seattle. But that is the kind of selling that he does, and that I want to say most of the people in the course, and it's not just photographers, want to do the mass. And I kind of agree with you, Carol. Although I wouldn't mind going to a gallery, but I am doing two things. I am the quality, and I just look strips, test strips for my pictures. Look, this is like the highest quality paper, by the way. And I went yesterday, almost had a heart attack because I almost couldn't go. But the bottom line is, these alone are worth like, I think like $15 a piece. But the paper that I want to use is the highest quality. The matting, the framing, very simple black frame. I want very standard, traditional, almost invisible mounting and framing, but it's archival. I have the funny feeling for a size, let's say for a what is it, 16 by 20, for example, because I'm not going to go any larger than 20, 22, 24 inches in any side. I have the funny feeling it'll cost me like $150 for the framing and the glass, because it's also going to be anti-reflection. It's going to be a UV protected, completely archival quality. But I am going to sell my photos at $1,500 online or through wherever, because I am selling my art, my soul, my experience, my you know. However, I wanted to, and let me ask you this, because I thought, for example, of Gordon Parks, who was a self-made artist. He just picked up a camera one day, borrowed it from a friend, went and took some pictures. Never forget the story, at a department store where they said they needed a photographer. They hired him, and that's how his career took off. But he was also someone who was self-educated. Then you have someone like Cartier-Bresson, who never talked about the fact that he may not have trained as a photographer, but he trained as an artist.
Yeah.
So it's not like he just walked into this and went,
Sorry,
ow!
before we change topics, and people reacted on the chat already, but I want to even though the chat is visible later on the video, but still,
Yes.
Cedric wrote a couple of very interesting thoughts to the chat, starting with about art galleries, about writing art galleries are weird like that sometimes, and he agrees with you that book is definitely a format to go for. Then he goes on to, it's probably better to start putting things in small series first. And very, very interesting comment. You could try finding places that are not galleries. There's some places like bars that also do exhibitions. They wouldn't take a cut and let you do your pricing as you see fit. And that's something that I see a lot here.
Yes.
I don't know if that is a thing in the Netherlands or in the US, but that's what I see a lot here from really, like Cedric wrote, in bars. Or even
In
what we
hospital.
have here is that a lot of banks, for example, have places where they show photographs, paintings of local artists, or even restaurants, bars. But you could probably put
Right.
that in the same kind of
But
draw. Or libraries. Very
yes.
don't underestimate libraries.
Yes, definitely. And also hospitals.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
hospitals, sure.
Now, and here, well, so here's two things. And actually, this friend of mine who I've talked about before, Dominic, who is just an amazing photographer, but who, like you, Carol, he's sort of, oh, I just don't want to. And it's like, dude, your photograph.
I don't
Your
hear you.
photographs No, no, no. I'm just walking over to get the picture. Your photographs are gorgeous, and he just sells them really cheap. This is
Ah,
one of
okay.
his images. Unfortunately,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Isn't
it's
that?
beautiful.
And he usually doesn't do plants. He does architecture. He does San Francisco scenery because he lives in San Francisco. But he's had he had a show sponsored by the city of Oakland in one of their central buildings in Oakland, in the city of Oakland. He had a show in some other place. He did a show in a coffee shop, and he also hooked up with let's call it a company. I can't think of the name at the moment. That they set up um, the when they sell a house, they come in and put art up and everything to make the house look more attractive. So they curate literally the art for each home. Um, so that's another thing too, and I actually am going to contact that person. Now, what you said, Pete, about the banks and so on, usually what that is that it's done through their main office, which is what Jason does. He goes like he did with Microsoft, and he's done with a couple of others, where he will go in and try to make contact with the people who buy all of this stuff. Another thing to think about is not just so much interior designers, but interior they're interior decorators, but interior designers that
Yeah.
work as part of the architectural team that will stage the house for the
Yeah.
owner and will pick the art and everything as part of the construction and design
Yeah.
of the home itself or the building. However, the thing to think about with that is that it also comes down to, and it goes to Cedric's point, because that's the other thing I decided on, because we talked about it in our group, is that when he went to talk to the interior designer, they told him flat out, your art is not exclusive enough and you have too many options. If for the art world, the I don't want to call it the pretentious, for the higher end art world, they want exclusivity, and it's your view of how your work is to be posted, and that's it. This is how I want my work done. Which is why I have to admit, when I heard that, I eventually realized, no, this is how I've always seen my photography. I've always seen it in a very, like Dominic's picture, very simple black frame, very simple white matting, maybe black for some pictures, I can see, but bottom line, I want something very traditional and almost invisible. And what I decided, also going to Cedric, is that I am going to sell my photos at limited edition of 5 images, period. In the one size, no options. This isn't about me helping you decorate your home. This is about you wanting my art and wanting my art to have a conversation with the rest of your collection, or if you want to bring more of my art. But the bottom line is, I can, and that's the other thing. I've learned to be able to say that to anybody, just like I did in a couple of sentences. But it's tough. It takes a lot of thinking out, writing out, researching. Am I good enough? And yes, damn it, you're good enough, Carol, and you're oh my God, your photography is stunning, and mine is too. I like, no, it is. It's absolutely, it's absolutely. And the thing is, with you, for example, I've seen your trajectory, and me, granted, we've talked, and I also know the struggles you've been through. But like I was saying earlier, I can see those struggles while you're still creating the pretty images. There's a story there, and there's an arc, which is fascinating. So I've been meaning to ask you this from the very beginning. You took down
Okay,
the
sorry,
yeah.
I have to interrupt again before we change subject because there
That's
were.
the only thing you're good for.
Yeah,
I
that's
love you,
that's
Pete.
what I do. So I interrupt. Yeah, right. And read comments from the chat. Very, very good comments from the chat. Cedric writes, a lot of private places of interest in it, but you got to find them too, right? But maybe that's, and I'm throwing something out here. Maybe that's the thing that um, we, as in people who have art to show and want to show our art, maybe that's a thing that we could try to do, right? In our in the communities, uh, in the offline communities we live in, right? Maybe try to engage more, interact more. It's just a thought, right? Maybe that would be, if someone wants to do that, this is my, maybe someone had the idea before, but if not, then please use it, right? I'll give it to you. If that is maybe a possibilities to set up a possibility to set up an online thing to I have space, you have art, I will show it, right? So maybe
Oh,
like
definitely. I'm looking for a group.
whatever.
I
So
would love to exhibit my work with other people together.
if someone wants to do that, please do it, right? And Lyndon Arden's highlights writes, Roy writes about bars, etc. Where I live in Northern California, there are restaurants that display high-end art. The artist gets a place to show his or her work, and the restaurant gets very good decoration for its walls. And I've seen that here
Yes.
as well. And there's one thing that I remembered. I saw a post lately, and I didn't remember who it was from, and that so I scrolled down on Tumblr. If you know the blog, Happy Melvin wrote something like that. He had an offer, or not only an offer. So he has one or two of his, or a couple of his photos um, in the quote unquote portfolio of IKEA. So that's of course a big thing, right? If you have really
Yes.
actual prints by a company like IKEA. So cool thing. Sharon Boswell writes, Sharon writes, Carol, you might also consider small independent boutiques. Many here in Montreal allow photographers to sell their prints, usually unframed, and take a very minimal percentage of that. And maybe that's something as well. If
Definitely.
that isn't
Yes.
a thing already, so why not really approach people? I had something strange happen a couple of years ago because um, I sometimes I sculpt stuff, not really professionally, but some things I like them. I
Really?
saw some of the stuff standing in my apartment, I think.
I
So
know.
so I was in a shop that sells well the stuff how to, right, I don't know what it's called, hobby shop, whatever, so
Yeah.
where you can buy stuff. And I said, I took one of the statues with me and said, well, I need something for, do you have an idea? I don't know what it was, hair or eyes or something. And really weird story, right? And this guy was totally fascinated by what I did, and he said, well, here, and he just gave me a box full of stuff and said, see what you can do with that, right? And we can sell that, we can. And so I took that stuff home with me and made something, and went a couple of weeks later, went to see him, and the shop was gone, and I have
Oh,
no idea where they went. So still have lots of that stuff. So maybe that's a possibility as well. If we um, just look around where possibilities might be, right, and then maybe something shows up. Heiko writes, no, there's more by Cedric. I did a couple of times too. Could sell a few as well. It's a good avenue, I think. So even first-hand experience. So it's possible to go in shops, to go in boutiques, because I think it was a direct response to Sharon talking about boutiques. And Sharon writes, it's especially popular in boutiques in Old Montreal, where not only locals but tourists frequent as well. So Heiko writes, there are actually a lot of possible places to show your work. Mostly it will just be decoration, though, and I'm not sure about the interest.
Yeah.
Sorry,
That.
that's right. It depends on the venue and the status of
Yes.
the artist, of course.
Yes.
And so, yeah,
Yes.
that's so much.
And by the way, And so, by the way, that's one of the things that has been discussed in the art of selling art. And he actually recommended, one of the things he said was, there's ways of finding out what are the neighborhoods that have because you want to sell. That's the other thing, by the way, you want to sell and focus on the people who will buy your art. In my case, because I'm going to be asking $1,500 for a picture. Granted, if somebody wants to buy a picture of mine and they're a friend, I will ask them not to disclose it, but I will give them like a huge cut for a couple of reasons. I think since I'm selling, let's say, a limited edition of 5, if I just sell to a friend, and let's say it cost me printing and framing, let's say it cost me $250, and I sell it for $350 just to make $100, but I sold a piece, which goes back to what your friend was talking about, Pete, with the video, that we don't get paid. But I think it's also about saying, hey, I sold something. So what you're talking about, Carol, about having the authority of saying, I'm an artist who sells. So I'd be willing to do that. But he in the lesson, it was about focusing on the neighborhoods, for example, where there's houses that are over $1 million, because you're selling to people who have money and who are willing to spend $1,500 like that on a picture. But it's not just about that. I went in and I looked, for example, I live real close to Lake Tahoe, and that place is full of people who own their winter homes there so they can go skiing and yada, yada. But when I looked at the galleries, not all of them had gorgeous photographs of Lake Tahoe. I can't sell my stuff there. I don't do that kind of stuff. Carol, you possibly couldn't sell your stuff there because they're pretty beautiful, stunning photographs of flowers and people with the flowers. Now, so you have to also think about where it is, and
Yeah.
I can't remember that you're selling to. And that's huge because you don't. Yeah, so you need to. It's not just being desperate to sell; it's being
No.
intelligent.
Yes, definitely. No, no, no. But it's also the reason why I started with the book and the course to make a book, because I thought, well, then I'm going to make it the way I want and the size I want. And yeah, it gives me a lot of freedom actually. And it's a
Yes,
freedom that I did not find in another place. And
yes,
I'm really enjoying it. And I think, well, I wait to see the reaction and the reception of this book, how it's gonna be. But I really like that process to work in series and to make a whole thing of it, to make a whole, yes, object of it, something,
yes,
you
yes.
know. And I
Well,
also
and
like the paper and all that relationship with the people who work on this, and I like this, and maybe that's the how I'm going to sell my work with books.
totally, and it's interesting you brought that up about working with the people who are doing the printing and so on, because when I got these test strips done yesterday, um, I now not only have a camera guy, tech, who is just wonderful. Whenever I go to him, he knows, and he's not just about selling me stuff, but about actually working with me to figure out, like you said, what's best for me. But I also now possibly have a print guy, Ward, over at Light Source. Absolutely, the brilliance of him with, I think it was this photograph, that I didn't have to tell him that this picture was taken with my D50, which was only 6 megapixel camera, a 6 megapixel camera with the kit lens. He told me this and this and this and the kit lens, and then he started to point out you can see not only the noise, but you can see the splotches of different colors, and there's certain flatness, but I can work with that, he said to me. I can enhance and bring out and make it still within your vision what you want. Baby, I am spending my money and printing up I'm serious. I have to send them to San Francisco, upload them. They're going to be in San Francisco. They're going to have to come to me, and it's going to take me, which is a couple of hours away. This is worth it. Working with an expert and working with someone who's confident. If you're serious, whether it's with the book or with anything else, because you get that conversation and that
Yes.
feedback, and you also learn more. I learned more about how to see my work.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to also, and go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, didn't want to interrupt you this time.
Oh no, and it's also, I will say, I emailed I emailed LightSource, and I didn't know I was going to be working with Ward, who's the person I spoke with originally, who is also an artist himself, which helps. And he's also the one, when I was talking to him the first time, and I started to get all, start crying, and not crying, but get all teary-eyed because I was so emotional that I was doing this at my age. I mean, I'm going to be 65. It was, I lost the idea, but there's something. Oh, that's what it is. I also, and I do this now when I go to restaurants too. I sent them 7 photographs that I said, I think this is a spectrum of my work. I said, I don't know what kind of papers you might. I will trust you. You print. I don't think it'll be necessary to print up a lot of test strips, but you know what you're looking at. You know what the material is. I trust you to print whatever the test strips you need to print. And sure enough, he wasn't trying to sell me a lot. He only printed 4, which really surprised me. So I trust him now even more because he's not just trying to get money out of me. He's willing to work with me.
Yes, that's nice. This is so good, eh? Yes. I had the same with my book when people say, "Oh, but I really love this," and they can talk about your work or they can relate to what you are doing. Then it's the
Yes.
right person, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. You said I love, and so this was one of the things. So the first time I talked to him, I showed him a picture. He didn't say if it was good or bad, and I didn't really show it to him to show. I said, this is the kind of photography I do. And I just showed him a couple of photos on my computer. Then yesterday, while I was there, we talked, we looked at the photos, and he showed me, oh my God, he showed me on this photograph, and I could actually see it, by the way. You can't see it here now, but on this photograph, he showed me, look, there's still the camera movement,
Oh, yeah.
and you could see a little. And this is, by the way, and I laughed when he said that, with my A7R3, which has in-body image stabilization. And yet I could see when he pointed it out that even then there's just that little shutter blur,
Yeah.
if you will. But again, he can work with that. He said that's no problem. And if you use textured paper, yada, yada, blah. I was in heaven. He never said, oh, this is great. Oh, this is pretty. Oh, I like this. Never. Nobody ever said that. And you know what? I really enjoyed that because he wasn't. I wasn't there to have somebody tell me, "Oh, I like your pictures," which has happened to me when I've had my photos developed at Mike's Camera, which is where I bought my camera and I buy my equipment when they have it because they don't have a large selection. Oh, that's really pretty. No, I mean, and I love the place, and sometimes they have to special order, which is fine. But I
Okay.
love. No, but when they printed my pictures, a lot of times, oh, this is really pretty, this is really nice, and it's nice to hear.
Yeah.
But
It's good for your ego, but it's not what you want to hear. Or, you want something that goes further or deeper, right?
yes, that's objective, and that shows me. But that's the difference. This place just prints up and it's done. This is an artist who knows how. This is someone who's like the magnum uh, 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 um, photo processor for all of these street photographers, including Henry Cartier-Bresson. He's the one who did just the darkroom work for them. He's the one, and this is someone who doesn't care about pretty or whatever. He is doing his work of making that photo look good. It was.
Ta-da.
I'm sorry. I'm so fascinated. I'm really sorry to interrupt that, but the discussion
Oh my God.
chat is just brilliant, and but we definitely need to, and I think that will be the next in conversation. I hope if you agree, Fern. I want to talk about reception of photographs. What you just did, when how people react. We all, I mean, all three of us, and all, I think everyone on the chat has a certain experience with reactions to what they put out.
Yeah.
Right, I'm not. I'm probably the exception of us three here. I don't really consider myself, at least not as a photographer, as an artist, so much. So I
You
just
know what, Pete? You know
no.
what, Pete?
I'm not.
Wait, no.
Yeah.
I'm not fishing for compliments or anything.
No,
Well,
you're
I
please.
don't consider myself as a photographer, but as a visual poet.
I love that. But no, we need to talk about that reception. What do we do with comments? What do we do with feedback? How do we do? So that will be our next in conversation, and everyone who
Sure.
and I think I have someone already. I will ask her if she wants to join us. But if you want to, please join us in the conversation, either directly in the conversation.
We should have Heiko back.
We should
I don't like
definitely
him.
have
He
Heiko back.
talks a lot,
But
but we should
that
have Heiko
I
back.
want to go into what we have on the chat because it's brilliant. It started with a comment by Cedric writing hot topic probably. But what about when you want to sell your photography, but it isn't art? And
Don't get me
Amy writes,
started.
so, well, we will start. And
I have a
Amy
comment.
writes, here's a question. Do you think you should price to your area? I know it's a different. We're going to talk about that in a minute, Amy. Carol posed the question, how do you define art? Sharon writes, exactly, when everyone has their own idea of what art means to them. And then the big cannons by Cedric. I mean, most photography is not fine art. It's reportages, it's basic portraits, family portraits, wedding. It's quote unquote artistic, but not the same. I'm under the impression that fine art photography is the exception. No, that's why it's called a middle brow art, I guess. And yes, Heiko, we really want you back. Um, you can have me every time, anytime. So you'll be on the next show, Heiko. So let's talk about what is when we want to sell our photos that are not art. Which possibilities are there?
So I want to go first
Yes,
because
please.
because this term was used, and this is one of the things that I am not going to use that term. I am not going to use the term
I
fine
know that
art.
happened.
What?
Your comment.
Hmm?
What? What comment?
Go on. Your comment.
So why are you not gonna use fine art? Shoot.
You look up. I had already thought this, but I went on Amazon. Amazon now has a curator that does fine art, and it has a photography section. And let me say this first. You know Pete and you know Carol and pretty much most people who have been on this before and who have been on Tumblr and looked at Luxlit and so on. On Luxlit, let me refer to this first. On Luxlit, being the gatekeeper, and I trust and I love the Luxlit crew. Thank you, by the way. But I don't care if you shot it with an iPhone. I don't care if you shot it on film and didn't edit. I don't care. If it's something that moves me and that I look at and I can see that it meets certain criteria, because I don't want to say rules, um, then yes, we share it as art on Luxlit. However, the term fine art, I'm not saying that it has to be expensive. I'm not saying that it has to be, posed and all this stuff. It can be photos like Dominic's and Carol's of flowers, and I do too, actually, flowers. I think that's art. Uh, it's art because it's an expression. It's something that we've put work into. It's not just the capture. Usually, it's also, and my friend Dominic is a fiend on Lightroom and sometimes. But the term fine art, you see, these photographs. I mean, one of them was just, four people, a family snapshot, and it was selling for $1,500 on Amazon as fine art. No, or and it's not just photography, by the way. Little paintings of a dog or a vase with some flowers, in just very lovely, but
Well,
amateurs. Do you know what I mean? It's a term that's been used to death, and to me, it does
yeah.
not mean anything. People like us, and for example, Jason Matias, from the course, who sells his stuff as fine art. There is some that is absolutely stunning, and I agree, but it's a term also that's just been used to death, and to me, it means nothing. So I will never call my photography fine art. It's art, yes. Whether you want to put it middle or low or highbrow, that's up to you, because
Well,
that's always going to be the case.
well, I do. I quickly search the definition, and on Wikipedia they say, I like the they write, by the way, fine art photography is photography created in accordance with the vision of the artist as a photographer, using photography as a medium to bring something to life that only lives in the artist's mind.
That's
Simply,
gorgeous.
they're perfect. Simply
Yes.
capturing what one sees in an artistic way is the art of photography, and not creating fine art. So
And
the
and
goal of fine art photography is to express an idea, a message, or an emotion. Ton ton.
yes, and here's the thing: when Pete, when you were reading all of that, I thought of, and I cannot remember the guy's name, the paparazzo who made a career, mostly, although he did others, of following Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. To the point where she actually sued him and won, and he still kept taking pictures of her, but he he had to keep a certain distance. This is the guy also that I think it was Marlon Brando, that he came up so close to Marlon Brando, and Marlon Brando just told him to go away, and Marlon Brando just finally just decked him. But the argument during the documentary, and this guy's had a show even, I think, in the Metropolitan Museum of New York, one of those big New York museums, is his photography art because of the subject matter? People like Catherine Deneuve, Marlon Brando, mostly Jacqueline Onassis, or is it art because it's art? Because when you look at his photographs, they are not in the same league as someone Doisneau, or can't remember how to pronounce it, or Cartier-Bresson, who are street photographers, and whose work is lovely. I mean, so how do we define that? And that's been discussed before, actually, even on Luxlit. Is it wonderful photographs of Brigitte Bardot because they're Brigitte Bardot, and because she went to bed with the photographer and we know the story, or are these pictures of a pretty woman doing this or having a cigarette? Is that artistic express? You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah,
tough line.
I have to, before we slip into a different direction now, because Cedric writes most photography is not that. In terms of the definition that Carol just read, and I totally, I'm with Cedric,
Yeah.
but maybe I'm the exception. I don't think, and I think that might be one way to see that, or to find a distinction. I personally don't think that the creator is even able to say, and maybe I'm completely, I face a wall now with you guys, but I don't think that I, as a creator, can define my work as art. That's only what other people can do. I don't. I. That's why. And we had these discussions, and we had these quote unquote fights a lot in the past. I don't see myself as an artist. I see myself as a guy who does things who sometimes turn out to be art. I don't intend to make art. I don't care for the term. I couldn't give a flying fuck whether I do what I feel right. And my personal definition, I think I shared it on one of these conversations in the past, about what is art. It's simply communicating my own view of the world in a skillful way, and that is my personal definition of art. And so what is art to me can be crap for someone else, and it's fine.
Sure.
And what
Yeah,
is
Sure.
crap
totally.
for me can be art for someone else, and it's fine. And so what other people think about what I do is also, of course, and that's why I want to have this conversation about the topic. We need to find a catchy title for that in the future. Because
That's your job.
that's my job. Yes. Well, so, and I love how this evolved. To be very honest, because it's really the discussion now, and um,
And you get to talk.
I also
Yeah.
talk a bit, right? Um, and we have, and I not only read the comments like Carol's, I'm sorry, Sharon's comment. I never labeled my photos as art. Agree with Roy. Overused him. Well, Lyndon Arden's Lyndon Arden's highlights Roy. I stay with Roy. It's easier to pronounce. I think that on Tumblr, one could also say that the term art is overused.
Yeah.
Definitely, not only on Tumblr, to the point of being meaningless. Absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
all we had that discussion, I think, and also Roy made that point what way in the past, right? Saying that we can over define everything and define something to a point where it becomes meaningless. Definitely.
So
So let me read the comments.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Heiko writes, when I read the fine art description, I kind of thought about Carol and her atelier, and also about the pictures she posted today on Tumblr. Thinking about it, I might have taken about 5 fine art pictures about 4 years ago. Cedric writes, which means you got to tone down the artist side of yourself and make the businesswoman come out. Tone down, I guess that's probably uh, well, typo, whatever. Mark Room, hello, Mark, on the chat. Maybe as creators, we should avoid the term art. We create photos or books or paintings or sculptures. Whether our audience defines it as art is up to them, not us. Well, that's how I see it. Please disagree if you want to disagree. I don't say that my definition is valid for everyone, and neither should anyone else's definition be valid for everyone. If it fits you, and that's how I see it. That's how I see my work. And just as one thing, I was over the moon yesterday when I never get uh, annons, rarely get annons on one of my blogs, and with comments about my work. And I got 2 yesterday on my writing blog, and it was just I was just sitting there and probably glowing from the inside. On the one hand side, I'm absolutely, it makes my day, and I'm almost explode of joy, even though probably you don't see it when you sit next to me.
It's
When
not that we don't see it, we don't care.
when people find a way to connect with my work, but that's not the reason why I do it. And I think that's what of course, wow, if someone connects. But there's one thing, and I want to share that. I found a beautiful quote by one of my favorite musicians, by the way. And no, it's not who you think, Fern. And you might be surprised that it's a quote by Johnny Cash, who said once, "You've got to know your limitations. I don't know what your limitations are. I found out what mine were when I was 12. I found out that there weren't too many limitations if I did it my way. And
Yeah.
so this is just well, the way how I see it. And I mean, like, I wouldn't post. I post my. Let's stay with photography. I post my photos to my Tumblr, not because I have this or that amount of notes, but because I like what I post, and I post the same shit for, or have been posting the same type of shit for, like, I don't know how long I have my Tumblr. And in the beginning, nobody cared, and then over time, people either got used to it, or I got better, or whatever. It was kind of a combination, I
You
guess.
got better.
I got definitely better when I look at my first
You,
photos.
your
Definitely.
your your photos are amazing.
Thank
Stop it.
you. So yeah, I'm over the moon. You don't see. Okay. Yeah,
So
Michael, let me just finish this chat, and then I'm just
yeah,
gonna shut up
yeah,
and then
but you
talk.
go to the chat and then you start talking.
Then we are more like creators than artists. Well, that's what I see. Well, that's what
Yes.
other people have to define the artist type. Amy writes, creators is a better term in her opinion. Roy writes, just say Roy. Fine, thank you, Roy. Cedric writes, I'm a visual technician, photo or video, so my de facto stance is I need a client that orders things. Yeah, right. If you perfectly put. If you And that's where, to find back to the original,
Topic.
great way to the original topic, how to sell our stuff, right? Sharon Wright, creator, definitely. Creator, technician, yeah, those fit better. And then, right. So back to the
But
topic.
here's
Repeat yourself.
so there's a couple of things. First of all, and I've said this a thousand. Well, first I want to go back. Let's keep it in country music. Uh, um, God, now I can't remember her name. White hair. She's part of Trio. Dolly Parton, um, Linda Ronstadt, Emmylou Harris. Emmylou Harris on an interview, and I've also said this several times on here. Quote from her, one of the interviews that she was on that I saw her on TV, where she said, and it's a quote from somebody else, but she didn't remember who. Style is a result, and I'm paraphrasing, of knowing your limitations. And with her, it was the same thing. And I live by that. That's actually one of my signatures in my emails, because yes, like she said, she, and like Johnny Cash obviously was referring to, you might experiment, but you also know within what range you are comfortable. So yes, style that's lovely. About art, here's the thing, and this is the way I see art for quite a while now. There's art, and again, I've mentioned her. This little, let's put it this way, this little cup, which is hand thrown. The only person whose pottery or clay work I buy, my dishes. To me, this is art, and she's not even considered an artist. She is considered an artisan, and I don't get that. It's her expression of her work. She's been doing it for at least 20 years. It's not art. It's not in a museum. It's not art in capital letters, uh, but it's art. It's art. So when someone does this kind of work and it's art, when a painter, what do we call painters? We call them artists. Why is it so there's three ways to me of thinking of art. There's art, what we love to do, which is what we all do. There's art, which is when Carol and I are beginning to go in the direction of becoming a part of the art world, which is A, capital A-R-T. And then there's A, capital A, capital R, capital T, which is when the art world picks you up and makes you a commodity. And that's where there's a lot of bullshit. And yes, your
Yeah.
work becomes expensive and you become a rock star. So to me, there's three levels of that. They're all art, okay, but it's just the different ways that they're looked at. As far as an artist, a painter is called an artist. And I don't know about y'all, but even if I take a photograph, let's say, and in JPEG and put it online and I don't edit, bottom line is, as someone who enjoys the art of photography, getting back to your comment, Carol, I take the time to look at what I'm doing. I take the time to see what's there. I take the time to create something for me.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. You could look at my contact sheet or my files. Most of them will probably suck. Maybe they all do, but it's the time and effort that I put into it, as opposed to someone who gets lucky, takes a picture, and it's done. Nothing wrong with that, but there's a difference. So why can't we call ourselves artists if we put in the same amount of time into creating something that a painter does or a writer does? Because writing is an art too. I'm an artist when it comes to writing. I am fucking good, and not just in one type of writing. I'm a damn good writer and an even better editor. But so why can't we call ourselves artists? Whether somebody else agrees or not, that's fine. That is, I understand that part of it too. But there seems to be this thing about, you know, I'm no, you're an artist, you know, you're an artist, Pete. Um, I, and we see that, and there's nothing wrong with ourselves calling ourselves that. It's not that we think we're the best artist, but this
No,
is what we do. This is what
exactly.
we put our heart into.
Yes, it's that we have that need to do it. We
And
must
by the
do it.
way,
We have to
yes,
create.
yes, and by the way, oh shit, Cedric, if you want to see yourself as someone who's a technical visual technician, if you will, that's fine too. I mean, I
Definitely.
listen. I know one our staff photographer, TJ, who was on our show like a year ago. You know, that's pretty much how he sees himself. He's incredibly talented. I think of him as an artist personally. Does all these portraits, and but that's how he sees himself, and he's happy that way. Daniel, to a certain point, who was also with us, more power to you. But the whole idea of, you know, we're not artists. No, I think we are, and I think most of the people on Tumblr, again, depending on however they do it, you can see you can see it. You can see when there's thought, when there's, you know, whatever. I have some. I love Johnny Cash, by the way. I'm reading the comments.
And I
Um,
think, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you, Fern, but I think it's also important to be proud of it.
Never be sorry to interrupt Fern.
I love Fern.
I
such
don't.
a schmuck. But
No, but you
now,
know, no,
yeah.
Fern. No,
Go
no,
ahead.
no,
Go
no,
ahead. Go
no.
ahead.
Wait. My
Go,
turn.
go, go.
And this is something I learned with that course with Satine, because she said if you want to present your work to a museum, for example, you have to be grounded. You have to be proud of your work. You have to be able to present it. You know what you are doing and why you are doing. So call it an artist or not, but you have to be proud of it. If you want to sell it, if you want to show it to, another audience than just social media where it's always so nice and friendly. But if you
Can
want to
I
go
just
to
say
the
one thing about the proud thing?
and
I
now
think
you
that is
interrupt
one,
me.
one
Hey,
thing.
oh,
I
oh,
think
oh,
that
oh,
is
oh.
one of the
You don't make
hardest.
friends here.
That's one of the hardest bits to achieve, at least as I feel, to learn to be proud of your own work. That was a hard way for me, and it was a long way, and I'm almost there.
So let me ask you both. Do both of you, and I want an honest answer. Do you love, not all of it, of course, but do you love your photography? I mean, are there images of yours that you see that you go, damn, I'd hang this up on my wall? Well, you have, because I know, Pete, you have the one in your living room. But do you see what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
because I'll be honest, I do.
Well, I can say that I love them, but yes, I love them. Yes. And it's the thing is, I used to teach and I was lecturer in university and blah, the story. And I was never proud. I had really excellent reviews from students, but I was constantly I was full with doubts if my lesson was good enough, if I paid enough attention, blah blah blah. But with my photograph, it's crazy. I know they are not the perfect technique or whatever, but for me they are finished. They are good enough, and for me that's enough. And I admire a lot of photographers, and I don't compare myself to them, but my photos, yes, I like them. They are like my children or my babies, or they do something to me inside, really. And especially now that I print them. I went to a workshop from Canon about printing, and the guy said a photo is only leaves the moment that you have printed it, and it's true.
Yes.
And now I print them on A4 from size, and then tarant, you see it. Indeed, it's alive. It's like you really gave birth to something.
Yeah, totally. By the way, the printing again. Now this is the test strips, which are
Yes.
not the full photographs. But when I saw my very first photograph, which was printed by TJ on a very small format, just a very common printing, I and now actually seeing my photographs in print is where it actually became real. But anyway, you Pete, how do you feel? Do you fall in love with your photographs sometimes?
There are some photos that I really love, and there are some photos I mean, I have a couple of my photos on my wall
Oh,
behind me.
there, that's true. Yeah, in your room too. Yeah.
And so, and I have the photo that you brought me on my wall as well, back there. Uh,
Oh, yeah, yeah, but that's just the skeleton.
it's a
Oh, please.
different, it's a different thing. No, there are some photos that I really love and that I really think that they are great and that I consider for myself to be art and that I hang on my wall. But I and that probably was the toughest bit for me because I'm never satisfied, even with a photo that I say, yeah, that's it. I look at it a day later and I say, no, I want to change. I would change this and I would change that. And so for me, having a blog was a super healthy thing because I put it out, right? And then it's done. I can make the little check box, right? And okay, but I always have the freedom to go back to it and change something. And it's what George Lucas once said about filmmaking. He once said, "You're never done with a film." Or I rephrase it, you just stop making it, right? You're never finished with a film. You just stop making it. And
Yes,
that's
definitely.
something I don't understand. And I don't say this is a wrong approach or a bad approach. Everyone has their own approaches. And or most people have different approaches, right? Not just one. So I don't understand, really understand, no judgment, um, how people can say, okay, this is done, be gone. So like the people who I take my photo with my camera and only my camera, and so on. This is the print, and so the photo is done. No, I sometimes revisit older shots and I re-edit them and I explore the possibilities and I explore myself with that and say, okay, back then I saw the photo this way and now I see it that way. And sometimes photos are memories of places or events or certain time frames that I had. And it's interesting how my memory changes by changing a photograph.
But this is your way of working. I have
This is my
completely
way.
different way of working.
This is definitely my way of working, and not only in photography, in writing, it's the same thing. And some Fern knows that I record my own stuff sometimes, and I sometimes re-record my stories that I made, and I work on them differently. And so this is um, this is my way, and this is, some people like it, some people don't. It's absolutely fine. And
Can I interrupt you?
of course,
Because I would like to react on one of the comment of Cédric, because he wrote, if your ego shows, you will get sacked. But for me, there is a difference between the ego and standing behind your photos and saying, okay, this is. I don't
And,
see it as a manifestation. I don't know how you say that, of the ego.
yes.
And
Well,
because
there's
there
a
is a story, well, I don't know how it is elsewhere,
yeah,
but here in Holland, it's really about what is the story behind the photo, and you have to be able to talk about it in 100
yes,
words or 70 words, or in 1 minute, and then you have to defend your photo. And it has nothing to
yes,
do with your ego. It's just you know what you did and you know why, and you think there
yeah,
is a reason why they should be seen, and it has nothing to do with your ego. I think.
right.
I think.
Yes, and well, I mean, it has there's ego, and then there's ego,
Yeah,
and to me, ego is usually hiding the fact that you ain't got an ego. Um, and it's interesting because, and I thought about this several times while this conversation is going on. I'm referring back to Jason and the art of selling art. One of the things he talked about that I latched onto early on was that when you are trying to sell your art and you're putting yourself out there, you are putting yourself out as someone with a certain amount of authority, because you are, whether you're self-trained or whatever, as he is actually, by the way, he's self-trained, and he's very upfront about that. He will say, I picked up the camera kind of like this guy Hatchby, or like I did, or like we pick up the camera and we start taking pictures and we really enjoy it, and then it becomes whatever. In his case, it became a business. In our case, it's the same thing. But you do have a certain amount of authority, and especially once you build your following, and not your following, your clientele. Once you start selling, once you start publishing your books and so on, you all of a sudden have authority, and that's a part of your position as an artist. I saw an interview once of Cartier-Bresson where he was very dismissive about his being an artist and all that stuff. And it's like, I'm sorry, you're Henry Cartier-Bresson. I'm not expecting you to stand up on a sofa and start jumping up and down like Tom Cruise did on the Oprah show. But you are Henry Cartier-Bresson. Come on. Oh no, it's not no. You may not want to talk about it. You may not have the words, but you are Henry Cartier-Bresson. You are Carole Ray. Pete Berger is Pete Berger. Y'all have stuff to talk about. You have incredible talents. There's a sense of not pride, but a sense of knowing what we can do, and
exactly.
of knowing and still be willing to listen and learn. I think there's a big difference between, hey, I'm the artist, and yeah, I'm the artist, let's talk about it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly.
And that's a part of the voice thing. If your voice is, well, I'm not sure if my paintings are any good, or I really don't want to talk about, who's gonna I mean, I might
Exactly.
listen because I feel sorry for you and
Yeah.
because I see your talent, but really, in and I think that's the difference, by the way, between doing what we're doing, Carole and I, as opposed to a lot of people who are incredibly talented, who should be selling their art, or who should be putting it out there, who don't. Because there's just, I mean, yes, it can also be chance, and it can also be, right place, right time. But there's a certain knowing, and you will get criticized for it, by the way, as I'm sure you know, because people will go, oh, well, you think you're better. No, and it's happened to me a couple of times. No, I don't think I'm better, but I have this talent, like with my writing, like with my critiquing, like with my editing, like with my doing oral presentations and that kind of thing. I know the things that I'm good at, and I have no problem. But when it comes to something like art, and especially photography, oh, well, you're full of yourself. That's your opinion. But again, it's a matter of where you are, and it's a matter of understanding, I also have to say. And I don't know how you feel about this, Carole. I know that my photography is not mainstream. My photography is not the usual photography. When I go to Germany, what do I take pictures of? The Olympic Stadium with no people, and no fucking people, and no fucking trees. um, I take pictures of landscapes, and they're usually black and white and dry, and they're not the pretty, oh, I was here in the Alps. I was here in the Alps. They weren't the beautiful nature photographs that Pete and Heiko and Steffi produced. They're different. But that doesn't mean that they're any better or any worse than their photographs are. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, I think we need to feel comfortable with embracing what we're good at.
Isn't
Bottom line.
and that's what I find, and I think that's a great point you made. Isn't that also one of the really difficult parts of that whole selling thing? Because at least how I see it, I while I of course try to get whenever I am somewhere or in some situation, try to get that one shot, right? To get this picture that blows me away and that I want to show, that I want to present. And I'd be lying if I'd say that I'm not trying to get that shot that I want to present. After all, I do have a fucking blog, right? I want to show my
Every time, every picture we take,
but
yes,
not every actually not every with me not every picture, but in the end it's so much more. It's about the body of work. And if you can look, you can see one of my photos, and you might, I have no idea if that is the case, but you might see a certain, we talked about that a lot in the past, style. I don't know if I do think I have sort of a style. I try to figure out what my style is, but I don't do that consciously. I do this because I like what I do, and I like things this way and I like things that way, but this is not a conscious decision. But in the end, it's rather about okay, looking at a couple of pictures that I did in the past or made in the past gives is I don't this is way more than just that one shot. And we always try to get that one shot that maybe when we talk about selling a photo that we can sell, um but it
But maybe we should define selling photo, because I saw in the chat.
very good question. Yeah, very good topic. Right.
Yes, because there is indeed a difference if you are working on commission, if you
And
are
hello,
working for a
Juan.
client, or if you are selling your free work. And yes, it's different. It's I had the example of Satine, my coach, and because she organized a portrait session a couple of weeks ago, and people could come and she would make a portrait and they would have 2 or 3 photos. And she was not happy at the end, because she said, well, at the end, I made portraits, people were happy, but it was not my photo. They did not have a Satine Panier. So she said, next time I will direct more, and then they will have a portrait with my own signature, with my own way of making a portrait. And it's, I think,
totally,
yeah,
totally,
it's a difference between how you approach people and uh, yeah, how
totally,
you work. If it's for a client, or if it's someone who comes to you because
yes,
he likes what you did, your free work, your creativity, and
yes.
your own world.
So let me ask you, Carol, because while you were this whole part of it came up, I did immediately have an answer, but I want to hear you first. When you are selecting your photographs for your website, for example,
Yeah.
how do you select them? Do you select them because this one really makes me happy and giggly, and I love this photograph, or do you select it because this is going to sell?
Well, I made 2 specific series. The one, Landscape of Teenagehood, and
Right.
another one, Enchanted Fences. So those are series that I would like to see in a book or be exhibited. And there is another category, and it's more a single image, and those are photos that will come back in the book. And that's it. That's all, actually. And the main of the
Yeah, but
photos on my Instagram account.
right, but when you choose the ones that are of all of those pictures in that are in your website, and you look at any one of the images, like the fences one. There's the one, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I mean, there's some, but there's one that has the vase on top of the
Yes,
green
the
garbage can, and then
garbage.
there's that.
Yes.
Did you choose that picture because you thought this is going to sell, or did you choose it because I love this photograph, or a combination?
Well, it's I make the editing because I wanted to sell it to a newspaper, to a magazine. And I think in the series there were like 20 photos, and I reduced it to 15, I guess, 13 or 15. So there are photos who did not make the final cut in the series because it was like a repetition of another one, or they look too much like another one. So I chose for ensemble, for that it makes a whole thing.
Right, right.
That's
So, but that's
One
interesting
question,
because you
sorry, one
also go
question,
ahead.
question to the viewers. Anyone else having lagging problems? Cedric writes he has terrible lagging problems in the video. So please comment on the chat if you also have lagging problems. YouTube changed a couple of things. I was hardly able to set up the whole stream because everything is completely different than it was last time. So maybe I can change something, and I will look into the settings of the stream. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, what Mark said. Hold on. What Mark's shoot. I got a hole. Okay. So when the whole thing about, so honestly, when I went through my photos for my website, not once did I think this is going to sell. I chose all of my photographs because I think they are stunning photographs. However, I will also say I chose some of the photographs, and I've said this way too many times. My photos don't usually get high counts, but I do get interesting feedback for my photographs. And that's one of the things that helped me decide from Tumblr, of course, what to choose and what not to choose. But I also found, and this is interesting to me too, that a lot of the pictures that even got really interesting comments and or that people really liked, they didn't move me. So I never, interestingly enough, thought about selling because I know they will sell. There is an audience, might be a small audience, might be an exclusive audience, might be a high art audience. I don't know, or an art audience, if you will. But yeah, that's interesting, and I do like the idea of a series, but that would be really interesting though to do a series because still, how do you decide what goes on there? Is it because you love it, or is it because it fits the story? Even if it's not a photograph you love, I mean, it still goes back to that question: Are what you share out, is that because you, let's not say love it, you really like it or love it, as opposed to it meets the standards? Am I making sense?
Yeah. Well, when I share a picture, it's because I want to share a specific emotion,
There. Okay.
and then that emotion is in the picture, and
Okay.
I want to share it. But if I look at my Instagram, sometimes I delete photos. If I scroll a bit every 2 or 3 months, then I delete
Yes.
because then I
Yes.
don't feel it myself anymore. And it doesn't matter how many likes or comments, it just goes to the
Yes.
trash.
Yes, yes, and actually that's interesting because I've been doing that on my Tumblr lots of years, like 6, 7 years. But I'm doing it because of for my pictures, because of that same reason. It's not who I am. It doesn't represent me as an artist because I want to go. I want to ask this, and just in general, one of the things I keep thinking about is on the one hand, like, and it goes back to your taking down your essay, Carol, about your questioning and your doubt and all this stuff, and what the fuck. um, I, on my website, want to share, here's me as the artist and the professional, but if anybody's interested and they want to see what I think of as my playground, is my Tumblr. because there's where I write about the doubt, and I write about personal stuff like my depression and all this kind of stuff. Or, oh my God, I'm freaking out. I just I just ordered my first business cards. Um, is what do you think of that? I mean, does that take away from your story? Does it take away from your authority as an artist? And why am I going to buy your pictures? Because I think that's why I'm thinking of you in that essay. I think it was the right thing to take that essay down for now, because you are trying to establish yourself as
Yes,
someone with authority.
yes,
However, I think it is a very valid topic, and I think it's something that you could later on bring up and say, this is what I've been through as an artist, because I know many folks, not just in photography, who have been through the same sort of thing. I'm actually thinking of my former best friend, and I have one of them, some paintings he did for an art class where the teacher hated them, and I'm like, your teacher's an idiot because of this and this and the circles and the quality of the paint and the repetition of the series. I mean, and I broke it, I broke it down in a way that for whatever reason the teacher didn't see it, and I get that. But so the whole thing of the doubt being a part of our work and the reactions of others should be talked about. But do I do that now as a beginning artist, or do I wait until I'm established and I'm on the cover of Photography magazine?
I have a question. What exactly is the doubt about? Is it about whether, and this is really a question, is it
Yeah.
about whether our art is any good, and why would we even bother if it's not good? Or why do we are we so focused on how other people perceive our art, or whether they think it is good or not good? Or so this is something that and I have no answer to that.
well, I have one.
You have one.
Yeah, well, it has never been really important to me, but now I decided to become professional, and so to be part of a professional world in the photography. So then I go to portfolio reviews, or I've been to really a lot of different master classes, and then, well, I entered in another world, and then you see that it's a very small world here in Holland, at least. And then, yeah, they have also a very strong opinion on what is hot and what's not, and it can be pretty hard. But the someone told me recently, because I explained also that text, that essay, and my experience, and because that guy said, well, you are almost there but not yet, and I thought, what the fuck, I'm ready, I'm ready, come on, you know. So but someone said, but Carol, why are you going to those portfolio reviews? Why? She said, you have to find someone that you admire the work, someone that inspires you, and you ask that person to make a review of your portfolio. And she said, well, I'm making dark images, I'm not going to go to someone who makes, I don't know, street photography, because she makes photos of empty building. So she said, stop doing to random portfolio review with random people, because they might not understand what you are doing, or they might not feel it, and it's okay, because we are all different. But you have to look for someone that you admire, that you feel a connection, and that person will help you to go further.
Yes. Well, and with me, and I have to say, this is what I find different from, example, the 2 online courses, the one that I participated in for a little while, and now the one I'm on now. And then when Sean Tucker also talked about like YouTube and the community and blah, blah, blah. One of the great things to me about Tumblr is that it is a place where I know for myself, when I joined Tumblr, I didn't and started posting photographs, I didn't have any expectations because it's not like Flickr or a course or anything else. So there's all of these people who do all kinds of different photography who will chime in and give opinions and stuff from their point of view, and that helped me narrow down because again, I don't think there was any expectation. So that really helped. So and that's helped. Now the other side to that is, and again, kind of like you, Carol, because Pete, you do different kinds of photography, but you usually highlight more your landscapes, which are gorgeous. But again, one of the things that really drove me crazy and really depressed me, and it's also because of my depressive personality, um, was the fact that I would look at all these pictures, and it wasn't so much the count, but I would look at, like someone, that like Pete, let's say, or you, get all these, all these likes, and I'm still have to say happy with 35. Anything over 30, 35, or even 25, I'm happy. And sometimes those pictures that get very few likes are really good. My portraits get really good comments, but they get maybe 30. I mean, they're beginning to get a little bit more exposure. Thank you, Jules. But to me, the doubt came from seeing all of this gorgeous work and going, what am I missing? But also sticking to it. And now looking back, the doubt was a part of my process of eventually knowing who I am. Because Carol, you said earlier that you didn't compare yourself to other artists. I get that, but for a while, I don't know about anybody else, I did. And that's when I started to realize, wait, this is the kind of photography that I do. When Pete and Steffi and I were, and Heiko and I, the four of us were at walking around in Munich, we took different kinds of pictures of everything, and all of the photographs are astounding. But they're all very different. And now I'm comfortable with that. Because let's face it, as much as we don't want to compare ourselves, that's a part of learning. Like, because it's what you said, Carol, it's also like finding someone whose work you admire and yada yada. And in that process, for some of us, for me, the personal total lack of liking myself and of thinking I'm just a bucket of shit, that plays into the doubt as well. You know what I mean? But it's been part of the journey where I'm now comfortable in what I do. I mean, I still have doubt, don't get me wrong, but
Right, but that's the thing, and I really want to chime in here, and I hope I will find the right words. And you guys know me a bit, and Fern even knows me in person. And I mean, I know that my photos have a tremendous amount of notes, and when I compare the likes on reblogs on my photos with other people, then I'm still one of the really small lights on the. It's so, and when I say it's I sometimes have when I hear, I know that you didn't mean it. We know each other well enough, Fern, that you know that I don't mean it probably the way I will express it that way. But I find it always a bit odd to hear people say stuff like or talk about people with this. And I feel that the notes on my photos are just mind blowing in parts, right? For me, it's still. On the other hand, I fucking worked for that, and I worked for that for like, I don't know how long I have my blog, like 5 years, 6 years, constantly. And it's not that and you know that, Fern, we talked about that in person. It's not like that I kissed up asses and I made a couple of quote unquote enemies. I don't take that seriously because it's just the web. And I always just did what I wanted to do. And then that is what I personally believe, and that's what I observed over the years, that if you do what you do,
yes.
and if you do what you like doing, and if you put your heart in that, and then eventually you will find your audience. And that's brilliant. That's the amazing. This is a wonderful thing about the web, about a blog, and it's why I love Tumblr so much, because we not only have this, and I apologize for the word that I will be using now, this incest community of photographers, but there are people of all sorts of they're kids, they're grown-ups, there are people who write, there are people who post their paintings, they're just in big quotes, people who have random blogs. And you this is life. This is not, I don't like Flickr, I don't like 500px, I don't like Instagram, I hate Instagram. But Instagram, I hate Instagram for a different reason. Um,
Why do you hate
we
Instagram?
can we can talk about that. This will be a separate episode. No, I can try to put it in one sentence.
Do you know that Instagram plans to hide the number of likes so people can just focus on the
I
photo?
don't, to believe me or not, I don't care for likes. I don't give
No,
a.
but I think it's really interesting.
We can talk about Instagram in a minute. Let me just finish that.
Okay.
So, there's a thing. The only thing and that's what I honestly can say. The only thing that I try to do, and Fern will heavily disagree now, in the last years on Tumblr, is to not be a dick. And I show my photos, and I think that my photos are good. I don't think that my photos are brilliant. I think my photos are good, and I don't I don't
Are
I
you
don't
talking about your
I
calendar
don't
or
see
about you?
I will mute you, right? So that you can say that I'm a dick. I don't see a reason why I would have to, and that's the feeling that I often get by some people, not by you, Fern, and not by anyone on the chat, because we know each other, right? But I don't see, I know people who I know, and I will just put a name out. I don't know if he's watching. Like, for example, Danny Bitte, who is just an amazing photographer, and he was this amazing, the shitload of notes, and he deserves every single, and he has tens of thousands of notes, and he deserves every bit of attention that his photos get, because he works his fucking ass off on each. I know him, I met him, I took photos with him, and he's just a brilliant person, he's a brilliant photographer, and he's not as lazy as I am. He gets up at 3 a.m. in the morning, gets on his bike, cycles to a to a lake, and waits for the right moment to get that picture. And so and I do things differently, and I just do things my way, and I found my audience over time, and it's like, so, um it's, if you I do quote unquote mainstream photography. My photos is are photos that people want on their blogs. That's why I have so many likes. These are photos that are, my photos are pretty, right? They're beautiful, they're pretty, and they're also good photography, point.
Yeah.
But I also do see, I when I on my other blog, T-Boom 365, I have photos that are not mainstream, and they're also good photography. They may be better photography than on T-Boom, but these are not photos that people want on their blogs, because they it's like, you want photos that you want to put up on your wall. You don't want, most people, the majority of people don't want art photography on their wall in the kitchen or in the living room. They want pretty pictures. And so this is not, and this is not a thing. A lot of likes are not an indicator whether this is art photography or better photography. It's just pretty photography. And
Yes, but
so, and I think, and this is the last thing that I will say about that, I think in those, and this is what I saw in the last 5, 6, 7 years I've been on Tumblr, those people with this enormous amount of likes. And another name that comes to mind, I don't know him personally, but I admire his work, and Frederick Adley, right? Amazing photography, plus pretty pictures, and doing that is fucking hard. And I'm by far not that I want to do what he does, because I do things differently. I want to find I will find my way. I am on my personal way, and I'm on my way. And well, I found my plateau of likes, and maybe one day they will rise, maybe they will go down. I have photos with not so many likes on my blog, and I started with 0 likes and with 0 followers on my blog, and it took a long time until I got to a certain. And then at some point, it was just it's continuous work, and it's continuously, and that's what I think I can say about my work, is that I continuously improved. And that's why I in the last year I didn't put out so many photos, because I don't have a lot of photos that I think are better than the ones I posted before. And I think this is the only secret for hobbyist photography. On If you want to get a certain, or in general about art, if you want to do art, if you want to become better, but not because this person says it or that person says it, but because you feel you want to become better. And I
Yeah.
don't, I have tons of photos that are equally good as the ones that I posted 2 years ago, but I won't post them because my photos now are better and I don't have as many of them. So this is what I said.
See, so it's interesting. So two things. That's an interesting take, that they're better. Personally, I've never thought of that, because I know that I took some pictures 5 years ago, which is astounding, that are just as good as the pictures I take now. Um, if different, I will say. But so that's an interesting take on what you share. I just happen to share, like Carol, whatever moves me, and sometimes they're horrible or they're not good or whatever. But to go back to your question about the doubt, yes, I don't disagree with you. But for some of us, and again, I'm only speaking for myself, I I'm telling you, I there were nights when, and it wasn't about the likes, but it's, I'm looking at these people's photography and I'm thinking, what the fuck? And I mean, getting suicidal and I mean, which for me, getting suicidal is like, oh, there's the sun. Oh, I'm gonna kill myself. No, you're not. Let's move on. but no, it is. I mean, it's something I've learned to live with, and it's something like with the doubt I've also learned to live with. I will still look at, and not just on Tumblr, but people like Annie Leibovitz, I will look at, for example, and I think, oh my God, why can't I do that? But then I also realize I don't do that. I do something else.
Right.
I'm learning from her, but there's from what, which is what you're describing, and I'm not. But for me to get to that, a lot of times, and again, it's something I've learned to live with. But for several years, it was an emotional struggle because of the baggage that I have. But I still loved photography enough, and do still love photography enough to keep doing what I'm doing, to keep learning, to keep participating in the Tumblr community, which I have to say, I love y'all. I know I've said it a million times, but that has been very useful because there's a group of us, and several of us have shared online very openly all of our doubts and so on. So that's what's been really helpful. It's not about not having the doubt. It's about, for me, it's not about not having the doubt. It's about learning how to live with it, not even manage it, but live with it. And some people don't have that doubt. Obviously, you don't have it as strongly as I have, which is fine. I mean, but that's for me anyway. For me, that's the doubt thing. The fact that I have a very low opinion of myself. I mean, still every once in a while I'll hear myself actually saying, "You're a piece of shit," and it's like, okay, thank you for sharing. Let's move
But
on.
that's the thing. I don't know. I I would be lying if I say that I don't look at the notes of my photos, because of course I'm interested
Oh, of course,
in
yeah, 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 yeah,
what
yeah.
people, how people, and there are photos where I say, well, this, I love this shot,
Right.
and why does this photo has this amount of notes and this photo only this amount of notes?
But
So
it's the, yeah, but
there's
hold
so
on.
much
But for
to it.
me, it
Number
wasn't
one,
about the notes.
no,
It wasn't really about the notes, and
uh,
it still isn't about the notes. It's
Oh,
about
me
looking
neither.
at
You know,
somebody's
I
work.
deleted my Tumblr. I had really a lot of followers,
yeah,
and
right.
I just deleted my account. and just started from scratch 1 or 2 years
Yeah,
after.
yeah,
So
yeah. And I think that's a part of it too. I think if we're going back to the question, Carol, about why he dislikes IG, Instagram, or whatever. For some people, that's a good place to be. For some people, Tumblr's a good place to be. For some people, Tumblr was overwhelming. Who's the young man who did the photographs of farms? Oh God, farms and farmland in California that were mostly abandoned farms, black and white, almost always. Stunning photography. He had a lot of followers. He was actually on Lens Blur for a while. He just, for whatever reason, couldn't handle it anymore.
Mm.
I'm
I
going to
know,
talk about,
I know a
I
lot.
think
I know a couple of people who were even a couple of times on the Tumblr radar when still
Ted,
when still photography was on Tumblr radar, right?
yeah,
Apparently, right
Ted,
now it's not so much, but which is fine, of course. But I know a lot of people who, as a friend of mine who was also on PWS for a while, who said to me, when my blog gets on Tumblr radar, I will delete the blog and I will leave Tumblr. And that's what she eventually did. Well, I don't know if she deletes the Tumblr, but she got on Tumblr radar, and then she was super uncomfortable with all that attention, and that's and I know that, the first time one of my photos was on Tumblr radar, I was just stunned, and I was on the one hand side, I was very very disappointed that I wasn't at home. I was on a job back then, and on the other hand, it was a good thing because back then Tumblr Radar really meant a
it's
big
something.
deal, right? And you had like
yeah,
thousands and
Well, it
back
thousands,
still
then,
does.
and it
yeah,
was like
Yeah,
3 days or something when the likes just
yeah,
and
it's a
the
plop
influx
plop 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 plop
flooded in.
went
Amazing.
crazy.
And my phone, the batteries of my phone just went down because of that. And so it's and but for me it was really healthy because my photos were in Tumblr Radar a couple of times, because you see it doesn't mean a thing.
no,
Each and every comment that, and even though I know, and I'm sorry for those, it's really from the bottom of my heart, I know I haven't been on Tumblr a lot lately, but my life has been crazy. For Fern knows a bit what has been happening in the last year, in the last 12 months. It was just batshit crazy and insane what happened. So I hadn't been on Tumblr for a very too much in the last months, and so if I missed one of your comments or one of your messages, I didn't reply yet. It was not on purpose, and I will do my best to catch up with that, even though I don't get too many messages. But also with comments. So it isn't that I ignore you or ignore anyone. It's just that I'm on the phone a lot, and I hate the app, and it's just I love my computer and being on the computer. But whatever. So it's a healthy thing because you realize it doesn't it doesn't mean a thing. And if someone sends you a message or a comment about what they feel about your, and that's what I mentioned before with on my writing blog, when I got these messages about how people feel about what I write or my recordings, it is absolutely heartwarming, and it's how this is how I mean, this is one thing. Maybe some people do it for that. I don't really do it for that, to be very honest. I do it, but it's on the other hand, it's a really important part for me too, because art, or the way we what we do, photography, writing, recording, whatever we do, painting, it is we communicate, and communication is never just one direction. It's always if people ignore what you do, you don't, which is also some sort of it's also an interaction. And because but the thing with if you don't get anything back, you don't know what is it. Do people just don't see it, which happens a lot on Tumblr. I
yes.
have
Well,
so often that I don't have things on my dash. So this is what annoys me. I mean, I have no problem at all if
right.
people don't like what I post. It's not a photo that I'm interested in. but I have a problem with when technology fails, because that's why I chose this fucking platform to be able to broadcast my stuff. And so if that fails, I'm pissed. If that
So,
if people
okay,
say
you're going off
I'm,
topic.
I'm going. I'll go back to the topic. So um, ignoring is fine if it's on purpose, because then I know that it's not something that people are interested in. And that's maybe even with going back to the topic of selling our work. If people are not interested in showing our work or buying our work, then we have well, two choices, right? Or we have one choice. We can find out why it is that they're not interested, and then we can say, okay, whether do I want to play into what they want to see, or do I want to go my route and say what I want to show, and maybe I will find my audience. And I personally think that, and this is a tough way, and it's not. It takes a long time, but in the end, we will find our audience if the audience is big
Well,
enough.
and you may
We
not
can
find your
actually make a
audience.
living on it, and if we not, I believe that. I honestly believe that you can and we can find an audience for fucking everything, no matter what it is. The question is the audience big enough,
Yes,
that it serves the purpose?
yes.
Yeah,
That is
And and
I
and
agree
getting
with
back
you,
to,
Pete.
yes, and getting back to the communicating thing, yes, and that's exactly which goes back to the whole thing of knowing your voice, of how you describe yourself, of being comfortable with saying I'm an artist. Look, there are people who have problems saying I'm a photographer because they think you have to be a certain type. You know what I mean? No, you have to be comfortable, again, not full of yourself, but comfortable. And I think that communication thing, because here's the other thing, and I remember reading this when I was young. This is like 40 some years ago. God, I'm old. Actually, I was a teenager. um some people find a great comfort, and you see this all the time in, oh, nobody understands me, nobody understands what I'm saying, nobody understands my art, nobody understands my music or my writing, and that makes you as a person
That's called
feel
puberty.
special.
That's called
No,
puberty.
not necessarily, because
I
some
have a
of the
son
shit
like
that,
that at home.
no. Oh, that's right, your son's getting the, oh yeah,
Oh
oh, good,
yeah,
good
totally.
luck.
Yeah, thank
Good
you.
luck.
I need
But
that.
but well, you Millman, you can talk to Millman. He's had two teenagers who are finally leaving that teenagehood. Um, but the thing is, that again, that is where we find, because it even goes back to your whole point about the doubt. We have to find where we as a person and how we navigate that. I know, again, for me with the doubt, and again, it's not about the numbers, it's not about the likes, it's about looking. For me, it's never been about the numbers. And being on Tumblr Radar was lovely, and I've been on Tumblr Radar several times, but or was a couple of years ago. But it's about looking at Carol's work, looking at Pete's work, looking at Millman, who's just, I mean, an amazing film. All of these, Sharon, whose work is just incredible, has always been lovely, but lately it's just awe-inspiring. All of these people, and I'm sitting there going, what the fuck am I doing? What, I shouldn't be. And I've literally felt this way, and I thought I should leave Tumblr. I'm no good. What the fuck am I doing? But I also keep doing it, getting back to your point, Pete, because it's what I love, which is why I keep learning. And for me, this being my third time doing photography, this is the difference now, it's not just so much about, oh, you pick up a camera and take cute pictures. No, at least not. I'm not that good. But it's about the learning. It's about the community. It's about the conversation, and it's about learning where I fit and being comfortable with that. But still, the operative word here is learning. That's part of what inspires me, is that I'm still fascinated and exploring, and not just photography, but someone like the woman in that documentary about the 100-year show. She's
Yes.
an artist, she's an artist in another field, but she is someone who still visually her style, which was very minimal, geometric almost in a lot of ways, painting, truly inspires me. I mean, I remember watching that going, damn, I want to take pictures that emulate, you know what I mean, that stuff, that are
Yeah, but
inspired, which
it's
I kind of
also
do.
very frustrating and sad because, I mean, and she said it that she was so sorry that her husband could not witness it because he supported her entire life, and she was
Yes,
95, and finally she was discovered, and she was first
yes,
refused by a gallery because she was a woman, and then because she was too old. And that's
yes,
also
yes.
an issue if you want to sell your work and you are 35 plus. And I'm 42. You know, I'm
Well, and
way, way
we
past
won't
the
talk about that.
35
just
stage.
just to give some background, it's a documentary about this woman who was in the art community in the late 50s, in the mid 50s, when people like Rothko and who's the one with the dripping paint, well, when all of these men were making it big, women like her, who have been discovered over the last 10 years, and she still does her work, although she has an assistant do it, were doing work that is now considered just as important, but
Exactly.
because they were women, was young, their work was shown. And so that's what we're talking about. By the way, really good documentary. I'd say it's about 45 minutes, maybe. It's not a long documentary, but it's again something to think about. Going back to what Pete said, that you keep doing it
Exactly.
because you love it.
Yes.
You keep doing it because you love it. I'm sure she probably had periods, especially where she had doubt, but she keeps doing it
And
anyway.
it's so hard.
And
It's sometimes it's so hard, you know?
yes, yes, yes. So anyway, we've been talking for over 2 hours. Pete's been talking for over 2 hours.
Right. All of the time. I couldn't keep my mouth shut. But
Why
well, I
start
have
now?
an offer you can refuse, right?
Yes, yes. Ugh. Horrible movie, but we won't get into that.
This is one of
Anyway,
the most brilliant movies ever, my friend.
no, no. Once Upon a Time in
No,
Once Upon a
no,
Time in America.
boring movies ever made.
No, Once Upon a Time in America is one of the best gangster films ever. Roaring Twenties is one of the best gangster films ever. The one with Paul Muni, one of the best. Public Enemy, the first one, absolutely one of the best. But The Godfather,
It's one of the best movies, best one of the best movie
yeah.
trilogies.
So you probably like Citizen Kane. Never mind. Never
Nah,
mind. Anyway,
dang.
anyway, we have been talking for over 2 hours. Anything else? Anybody have anything to say in the comments? I'm sure they got
Yeah,
lots
we love you,
to say.
Fern.
Don't,
With
don't,
you,
don't say we, Carol. Don't say we.
I love you, Fern. I love you, Fern.
for anything. Go, Pete. You do the comments. Go ahead and what do you, the
Okay,
chat? What do you?
I'm sorry, I completely,
I've got the occasional wedding. Oh, that's interesting. Cedric
Yeah,
is talking about the kind of work he does.
and also the
but,
workshop and the education.
Yes,
right,
I
yes.
must say, all the
Carol,
photographers I know, professional, who are doing free work, are also giving workshop and course.
Yes.
Actually, all the course that I follow are from professional photographers. I think it's interesting.
Well, and here's the thing too, that I, and we've talked about this before on here, and I know Pete and I have talked about this a lot. There is, because we talk a lot. Just because you're a
true.
photographer
We talk a lot.
doesn't mean shut up. Doesn't mean that we're good at teaching photography. And I think that's really a good thing to keep in mind as well, because just as if you're good at whatever field, you're good at this. For example, Millman Harrison is good at photography, and I know that he would be a good teacher of photography because he is an awesome teacher. You know what I mean? And so they're two different talents. So again, getting back to your point, Carol, about actually finding someone who is good at the critiquing and all of that, because one talent doesn't mean that you're going to be able to talk about it, really. I mean, and honestly, I'm a good teacher, but I would never feel comfortable talking, giving a photography workshop, because I also am not that technically inclined,
Yeah.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I think that's one thing about, well, about all of that. You have to know what you're talking about, and
Yes.
Yes.
you have to, no,
And, and be
I
good at
think it starts with
but
this.
especially in photography, I think
yes.
I'm better at quote unquote teaching photography than I'm a photographer, because the technical stuff, it's you have to understand the mechanics of that, and the mechanics. And that's a good thing about photography, that the mechanics are really simple. What's complicated is to explain the creative part, and um, that's what you can. And this is that you cannot teach photography. You can only teach the technical part of photography.
No, but you can coach. I follow
You can coach.
Yes.
master classes and a
Right.
course, and the last one, it is really since that course that I start to include more and more piece of human body in my photography. Because before that it was only flowers, 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 and now she really and the course was what is your story, so it was nothing to do with the technique, and she also did not look at the technique, but more who we are and what do we want to say in our
But
pictures,
that's I
what
think
is about.
that is teaching on a different level, in terms of, you can teach the technical side. That's what you can teach, right? But everything else is, rather, it's not telling, it's rather asking
It's
questions.
inspiring.
It's
Exactly,
bringing
and good
bringing
listening.
people, right, it's
Yes.
bringing people to a point where they see things themselves.
Yes.
And that's
Exactly,
what
but
great
that's also in,
did
yeah.
and that's what the greatest teachers I had were always people who made me do things, and
Yeah.
who then explained to me what I was doing. And so making me look closer, and making me see things, and not
Yeah.
telling me this is what it is, because that's quite frankly bullshit. Nobody can tell you this is this or this is that, because we all see things differently. It's rather a thing, te- explaining to you what kind of, maybe the common denominator is, what most people might see, but and showing you possibilities, showing you doors, and telling and showing you, or getting you on into
Yes.
a position where you will want to go through that door and explore the
Exactly.
universe and find out for yourself what it does. And then, this is why. And so, great way to wrap the show up. This is what next show will be about, reactions, about feedback. What can we get out of how people react to what we do. And I will try to come up with a catchy title that sums this all up. And that's how we learn. What do things to us? What do things to other people? And why do they react to that? And
Yes.
this is how we learn.
Yes.
That's
And
how
it's
I.
all about the constant learning. Because I go back to thinking about this guy Hatchby, who quit after 10 years. And I wonder, since he was never really interested in becoming a photographer, and he fell into fame because it was at the right place at the right time. Gorgeous photographs, at least a few that were in the article. Did he pursue it? Because Cedric also points out, which I know from our own staff photographer at work, who studied photography. TJ went to the university. He has a degree in photography, and he's again brilliant photographer. But because he now does the kind of work that Cedric is talking about that he does, where he does you know, our staff photography work, the portraits, the video shoots, like the one I was on last week with them, that he was actually the director. He has dropped. I mean, we still talk, and he's a wonderful inspiration, and maybe he should come back. He's absolutely just amazing to be able to learn from and to share with. But he, like Cedric says, you know, it's all that work, and it takes up all that time. Which goes back to what Carol was talking about earlier, you know, that we sometimes need to decide, do we do it because we love it, or do we start doing it as a job? But to me, bottom line is, aside from that decision, it's all about the learning, and it's all about keeping it fresh by exploring and wondering.
Yes,
Not even how
exploring.
I can, it's the exploring, and not just maybe what I can learn for myself, but just to look at other people's work. And now I'm in the place, getting back to Pete's question about the doubt, where I can look at other people's work, and yeah, I might think, oh, then I think, no, this is gorgeous. This is what I'm looking at this for. I'm looking at it for the beauty. I'm looking at it for the inspiration. I'm looking at it just to know, because I'm also, I will admit, fascinated by process and how people do stuff. But it's about the learning. Yes. So anyway, I'm through, Pete.
Hooray! We will wrap the show up. It was a fascinating discussion. I'm sorry when I, or that I, not when I or if I, but that I forgot to, in the end, didn't have the time, didn't have the overview of what was going on the chat. You all can see the chat later on the video on YouTube. The chat will still be there. So it's fascinating to I see that later when I watch the video. Always see read the chat, and it's so many things that I didn't see. So thank you all. Thank you, Carol.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
So, thank you, Fern. Thank you, chat. All you lovely people on the chat. Amazing discussions today on the
Yeah,
chat.
it was nice. I also really enjoyed the chat.
Really enjoyed
Yes.
the chat. And for me, this is what not only, I mean, even though it's hard for me to admit, I enjoy these discussions with Fern. Um, but this is what makes this whole thing so amazing, is you people out there who engage, who talk on the chat, post questions, post comments, and I really try to do my best, and please, and I hope I have become better over the last months to really include you in the video. So if I didn't react to something on the chat, either in writing or in putting that on the video, then please excuse. It's always very exciting.
We love you too, Pete.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this evening, this Saturday evening here. Evening for me, for Ferdinand, the day is just beginning. For Corolla, it's also evening, I guess. We're in the same
Yep.
time zone. So, this one's for today. Hope to see you, read you all next time. As I said already, mentioned, what the next conversation will be about. We're going to come up
Instagram?
with a we can talk about Instagram. We can do that.
No, but
The second to next conversation.
yes.
Maybe I'll make an Instagram account for that.
Oh, yes,
But
please,
maybe
Pete.
invite.
Make an
We,
Instagram account, make stories, share your
Oh,
life,
I don't like the
okay, I'll
share
tell you.
your
stories.
process.
Or I will make an Instagram account just for the InConversation, and I had an Instagram account. I forgot my password. So I will make an Instagram account for one of the next InConversations, and I will share my personal experiences with Instagram. I haven't posted to Instagram for like decades almost, well, years. So probably a lot of things changed on Instagram. So I will make an Instagram account tomorrow, I promise.
Big
And
announcement.
so big
You
announcement.
don't forget to invite all of the people on the chat and anybody who's going to watch later, to invite them to join us. It's
Yes.
always good to have
Next
people
show,
who aren't you.
I wrote it to the chat. In the next show, if she has the time, of course, there will be Jennifer on the show. But we're not limited to one guest. We can have up to
And
7
Heiko.
guests. Heiko will be on the next show, definitely. All right, if he has the time. So everyone who wants to join us in this conversation,
Or
live
Millman.
video,
Some
or
repeat.
just on
Or
all
maybe
elements,
Cedric.
of course.
Yes, Cedric. I was just going to say yes.
Frederick, of course, please. So either message Fern
Roy.
scholar.tumblr.com or
And maybe we
Amy.
should make a meetup when Fern is in Europe.
Oh yeah.
yeah, right.
Well, no, I'm going to be in Europe. I'm going to be in Spain.
Everybody
This
come to Europe.
well, you'd have to go to Madrid because I'm going to be in Madrid in a couple of days.
Un panuelo de silencio a la
No,
hora de
that's okay.
partir.
I owe you a couple of fists full of coins, Fern, as we found out that you lost in my couch. And so as yeah. We will have a couple of guests, I guess, next time in the next conversation. So this one's for today. Thank you all for taking part in this, either as active members of this conversation, Carol, Fern,
Thank you.
and all of you people, lovely people on the chat, or in passive participants. So yeah, I think
Share
up.
Carol's website and IG on Tumblr later in the comments.
I will do
Oh,
that.
thank
Fern,
you, Fern.
please say your URLs.
My URL for my photography, it's Fernando Socorro, S as in Sam, OCORRO.com. That's my website. My Instagram is Fernando _Socorro _._com. Because they don't allow you to put dashes or dots in your account name.
_com? I don't think so.
Fernando.com, but Fernando _Socorro _._com.
Yeah.
._com.
Yes, instead of a dot. They don't let you
Wait.
put dots in your account name.
All right. Whatever.
This.
You heard it.
I just put it. Voila. See?
So
That's true.
I will put that all. Carol will you guys message me your URLs on Tumblr, and I will put them all in the post. So yeah, this was for today. See you soon.
Oh no! Shall we continue?
Yes, you have.
Sadly, we usually do.
Right.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye bye.
Bye.
Till next time.